This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we are live in Los Angeles on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me, as always, on a very different morning in America.
I am exhausted. I stayed up till 1 in the morning. Did you?
Oh, my God, I did not.
I wanted to watch every second.
Yeah, I stayed up till about 11, and then I got really tired, and then I woke up at 3:45 and went back to the television set to watch.
You did?
Well, I got 5 hours of sleep, and that was fine. I'm fine.
You're very different than me.
So it's interesting. Let me start my show by saying this. I got a million texts, even from my bosses this morning, and they're like, oh, what are you going to say? What are you going to say? What are you going to say? And I think I've built an audience over the last 25 years, and I think I've built it not on the best voice, not on the best look, not on the most sports knowledge. I think I've built my credibility on I'm authentic. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if my bosses hate me. I'm authentic. And so I think it would be totally inauthentic for me to not spend 2 to 3 minutes on the election last night and what it means to me and what it means potentially to you. So I watched the election stuff last night. Did you notice where all the reporters were last night? Did you see that bureau in Kansas City? Did you see one in South Dakota? No. They didn't have a bureau in Montana either, or Indianapolis. They were all based in New York. One of these days, our politicians will figure out New York doesn't decide the president, Ohio does. That's why we love the Cubs. We relate to the lovable losers who aren't the richest, who aren't the most successful, who aren't the most handsome. They're relatable. Authentic. Relatable. The blue team's out, the red team's in, because they were more relatable in the suburbs and in rural America. Is Trump a concern? I think our republic is built to withstand Trump. What our republic is not built to withstand is a media that the American citizens don't trust. And oh boy, you do not. That was a middle finger to the American media, to the American establishment, to the political system. That wasn't a vote for anybody. We didn't like either of these candidates. It was a vote against New York, against L.A., against power, against wine sommeliers. America last night voted for McDonald's and pizza and the Packers and the Big Ten Conference and Judge Judy. On Twitter, Colin Kaepernick's a star. In the real world, Brett Favre is because he's relatable. And Charles Barkley is because he's authentic. Jim Harbaugh orders a milk with his steak. He takes a glove to the game. He goes to wrestling events. He wears those khakis. And he is rolling and relating to regular people. Look about what's popular in America right now. It's not the New York Jets. It's the Packers, the Cubs, Michigan football, St. Louis Cardinals, Big Ten Conference, pizza, not kale salad. The burbs in rural America spoke last night, overwhelmingly. And they said, we don't trust you. We don't trust the big establishment, and we don't really trust the people in power, and we don't trust our government, and we don't trust our Congress, and we're voting you out. Blue team out, red team in. And I watched media last night, and I listened to media this morning, and the political media is disgusted, and they're blaming the public. Man, look in the mirror. Get off Twitter. Colin Kaepernick's a star on Twitter. Brett Favre and Charles Barkley are in the real world. Why did America root for the Cubs? Not the slickest, not the richest, not the winningest. Right in the middle of the country. Lovable losers. I live in a bubble on the beach in L.A. It's blue territory. But if I got in my car, there's 3,000 counties in America. 3,000 counties in America. I live in a blue county. If I got in my car at the beach in Los Angeles and I drove to the other side of the country, I would drive through about 400 counties. 390 would be red. Our republic is built to withstand presidents. Jimmy Carter was a bad president. Interest rates were 16%. You couldn't afford to live in a home in America regardless. Maybe not even Trump could live in the home he wanted to live in. But our country is not built to withstand a media in the bag for one side, untrustable, condescending, unrelatable, elitist, and out of touch. You spoke, you voted, blue team out, red team in. Let's work together. All right, that's how we start our show today. I feel like Bill O'Reilly. Now we'll move on to sports.
Sound a little different.
Speaking of sports, and speaking of polling, last night in America, Americans lied to the pollsters. Wow, did they lie? So the College Football Committee came out last night, and they said Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Michigan 3, Washington 4. But I've been saying for years and years, I always go to a different poll, the one I can trust, Las Vegas. Las Vegas has a ranking every week in college football. And do you know what they think? They think the committee is biased. They think the committee has a Big Ten athletic director and a Big 12 athletic director and a Pac-12 athletic director and an SEC athletic director and a bunch of former coaches. And Vegas doesn't trust the committee. Trust. Big word today. You know what Vegas thinks? That USC and LSU are way better. And that Washington maybe isn't. Because on a neutral site, Vegas thinks Ohio State would beat Louisville and Washington, and so do I. I'll give you an interesting team last night on that committee. LSU. The committee thinks LSU is barely a top 25 team. Vegas thinks they can beat anybody. Vegas has them 8th. The committee has them 24th. It's interesting, isn't it? So LSU lost to very good Auburn on the last play of the game. Lost to Wisconsin, a very good team at Lambeau, largely driving for the score. And was tied with Alabama at 0-0 in the 4th. Vegas is like, well, obviously, that team's very, very good. The committee, fear-based, all sorts of people protecting their space, said LSU is no good. Vegas is overwhelmingly right. Vegas is way more trustable. Vegas is way more relatable. LSU's losses have come against good teams, Bama, Wisconsin, Auburn, often games in which LSU was driving for the score or scored against Auburn and thought it counted. And the committee, which apparently has decided based solely on wins and solely on the way it's built in its structure, LSU's no good. When I looked at that poll last night, LSU's the team I looked at. That committee is clueless if they think LSU's the 24th best team in the country. The poll I trust says they're 8th, and I think that's more accurate. Again, be authentic, be relatable, be trustable. Committee out, Vegas in. So there you go. On a very, very weird day where nobody on our staff got sleep. Nobody.
Except for you. You're 5 hours.
Yeah, I'm tired, but that's okay. I think a lot of that stuff is psychologically tiring, just like watching over and over and over and over. And like to me, I was tired. When I went to bed, I was exhausted. When I woke up this morning, I was exhausted.
Yes.
I'm tired now. You know what this cup is full of? This is not coffee. This is like Red Bull, quadruple X Red Bull.
With a caffeine pill in it?
Yeah. It's one of those days.
Hey, sports fans, football season is here, and it's time to get in on the action. MyBookie.lv, an industry-leading website, is offering a 50% bonus when you join and deposit today. Are you sick and tired of getting the runaround when you ask for a payout? Come join MyBookie.lv. With decades of expertise, no hassle payouts, and no fine print, you'll experience the greatest customer service in the business, guaranteed. Did the game already start? Don't sweat it. MyBookie offers in-game live action on all your favorite sporting events. Call 844-9 844-900-2387 or visit us online at mybookie.lv to open an account and claim your 50% bonus. Pull out your smartphone to sign up with our user-friendly mobile site for adrenaline on demand. What are you waiting for? Get in the game. Call now to claim your 50% bonus before it's gone. That's 844-900-2387 or go online to mybookie.lv to open an account and start winning today. Only the biggest, only the best, only at mybookie.lv. Sign up today.
Last night, Cleveland lost, actually, just an NBA game, and not that big of a deal, but he moved into the top 10, LeBron James did, in scoring in the history of the NBA. So LeBron now is a top 10 scorer. And it's interesting because I'm reading a story this morning, and his high school basketball coach says, you know, it's funny, he averaged like 29 a game in high school, but he could have easily scored 50. I don't know why we are so mesmerized by points, but we are. LeBron James said after last night's game, he goes, scoring's not that big of a deal to me. Here's LeBron last night.
You know, for me, scoring it's never been on my list of goals. You know, facilitating, getting my guys involved, rebounding, defending, getting block shots and things of that nature. Always ranked above that.
And here's what's funny. There is a large percentage, maybe 75% of my audience, who hears that and thinks it's a weakness. We have been fooled into believing that if you just score the most, that's the most important thing, hands down. Well, it depends on what your field goal percentage is. It depends on, do you do anything else? Carmelo scores, but gives it all back on the defensive end. Same with James Harden. And I was thinking about this morning. Bill Russell averaged 15 a game, has 11 rings. Magic was never a great scorer, never scored in the 50s, ever, for that entire career. That LeBron James is easily the most valuable player in the league, and he's also the most complete basketball player the planet's ever had. Most of you will not consider him the best player, but he is easily the most complete. He is a much better rebounder, defender, and scorer than Magic. You can't compare any center to him or any point guard to him. He's just significantly more important. Magic didn't play defense like LeBron. Magic can't rebound like LeBron. Magic could never score like LeBron. LeBron scores 20. He could easily score 40. If Magic scored 18, that's what Magic scored. Michael Jordan. Michael doesn't handle the ball like LeBron. Michael doesn't rebound like LeBron. Michael Jordan is not the teammate and get others involved like LeBron. When Michael Jordan left Chicago, 57 wins to 55. Even when he left the Wizards, 35 wins, he left. 2 years later, they were a playoff team without him. Tom Brady leaves, the Patriots win. Wayne Gretzky leaves Edmonton. Edmonton won a Stanley Cup. LeBron leaves Cleveland. The franchise essentially folds. Comes back best team in the league. There's never been a player like this. Ever. He is such a Swiss Army knife that when he leaves, teams plummet because they have to replace 5 things he does better than everybody on the team. Michael wasn't the Bulls' best ball handler. He wasn't the Bulls' best shooter. He wasn't always the best teammate. He often didn't engage everybody. He wasn't the best rebounder. It's just remarkable to me is we punish LeBron. Willie Mays was a better baseball player than Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth is considered best baseball player ever. Willie Mays had 660 homers, 338 stolen bases, 12 gold gloves, and when he started playing baseball, that didn't exist. He would have won 16, 3,200 hits. I mean, Willie Mays could do everything. There was no other Willie Mays. We never had another Willie Mays. We've had a lot of power hitters. But in our society, Babe Ruth's the king, home run power. In our society, Michael Jordan the scorer, scoring power. But before Michael Jordan existed, we considered Bill Russell, 11 rings, great rebounder, great defender, decent scorer, to be in that top 2 class of all time. In fact, Bill Russell would be deeply offended if he considered Wilt or Kareem in his class because of his rings and rebounding and shot blocking. But when I watch LeBron, and I won't apologize for it, there's never been a basketball player that complete. You've never played with a guy at the Y that can rebound, ball handle, score, pass, communicate like that? You've played with a lot of guys at the Y that can dribble. You've played with a lot of guys at the Y that can rebound and shoot. You've played with a lot of guys who are great athletes on both ends. You never played with a guy like LeBron. You never played with a guy that can do everything like that. The big can't dribble. The little guy can't rebound. He can do both. Hi, everybody. Perky Jerky came out with a bunch of new flavors that I think you should try. Jammin' Jamaican, Brewmaster's Pale Ale, and Barbecue with Soul, and that's S-E-O-U-L because it tastes like traditional Korean barbecue. What I love about Perky Jerky, the flavors pop. They're bold, and the jerky, you know this, really tender. For me, Brewmaster Pale Ale, fantastic. I mean, think about it. If beer and jerky go hand in hand, why not put the beer and the jerky in one? It's like a happy hour in a bag. To get your hands on this new flavor, hop on over to the Home Depot. Or if you'd rather shop online, go to perkyjerky.com. And don't forget to put the code in Colin. Also, if you love it, go to Twitter and say you love it, at Perky Jerky. So every year in the NFL, this is a weird thing. Every year in the NFL, there's only one or two of these games, okay? And it makes no sense. The line comes out, and it makes no sense. So Pittsburgh's 4-4, struggling mightily all over the map. Dallas is 7-1, and Dallas leads the NFL in rushing, time of possession, fourth down conversions. I mean, Dallas is doing right now everything right? And yet, Pittsburgh's favored over Dallas. What? That is right on the money. So this morning, I looked at that line yesterday, and I thought, okay, we only get about one or two of these a year, and they don't make sense. That you look at a line, and you think Vegas made a big mistake. How in the world is Pittsburgh favored over Dallas? And then I went, every week I get something. I'm not even sure of the name of it. It's sent to me. It's a Vegas odds sheet. And they give you little hits and who you should take and who you shouldn't.
Like an expert?
Yeah, well, I don't even know what it's called. It's just I get it from a friend that sends me it. It's been sending me it for years. And they'll have little nuggets that are very interesting. I don't necessarily always buy their picks, but I think it's pretty interesting stuff. They always have one or two really good gems. They have Pittsburgh crushing Dallas. They said it's a circle the wagons game for the Steelers. Big Ben got the rust off on the road, but when he's at Heinz Field, he has a 51-13 touchdown to interception ratio in the last 2 years. The Steelers, unlike the pathetic Browns, can exploit Dallas's banged-up secondary, Mo Claiborne, Barry Church out, and the Steeler defense has got better in recent weeks. And this is what's really interesting, is that Dallas now on this, we called this morning to Vegas, is getting 90% of the consumer's money. Whenever that number goes above 80, wise guys go the other way. 90%. There may not be another game this year where more people have bet on one side. When they do, the sharps, the wise guys go the other way. 90% of the money's on Dallas. Remember, Pittsburgh's 11-3 in the last 3 years in November and December at Heinz Field. This game's much bigger for Pittsburgh, and here's a really interesting number. Each of Dallas's last 4 opponents have completed over 70% of their throws. So Big Ben, after being humiliated, comes back home, public overwhelmingly on Dallas. Vegas says Steelers win this game. Believe Vegas. Believe Vegas. This is the one, and they don't happen often. They don't happen often. It doesn't make any sense. Vegas knows what they're doing. Dallas is giving away completion after completion. And Big Ben will take advantage of it. By the way, Pittsburgh's not playing well. Big Ben yesterday was on radio in Pittsburgh, said, hey, don't worry about it.
I couldn't do the Aaron Rodgers relax. I'm just going to say it's halftime. We've had a lot of great second halves in my career and in Pittsburgh Steelers history. So whether it's a half of a game or a half of a season. So it's not over yet. And I look forward. I'm excited for the second half of the season.
Second half of the season. You know, I just saw this number, Christine. This is interesting. I just saw this number. Did you see the Wisconsin turnout number last night?
Yes.
It's not that Trump won. Democrats that didn't show up.
Yeah.
It wasn't about Trump in Wisconsin. It was about Democrats didn't show up. So the Democratic candidate just didn't instill enough energy into the base. Trump didn't get a lot of votes. Romney and Bush got the same number of votes and lost the state. It was Hillary didn't engage her voters.
Yes.
Wisconsin's a great example. Wisconsin wasn't about Trump. Wisconsin was about Democrats not getting off their butt and voting.
And more registered Democrats voted Republican than registered Republicans voted Democrat.
Yeah. So in a lot of this stuff, much of this stuff is, can you relate to people? Can you get people off the couch? There's more registered Democrats in America than there are conservatives. Can you get people off the couch? I said this. Jim Harbaugh, to me, is really, really very, very interesting guy. And Jim Harbaugh, since he arrived at Michigan, I remember going to the Super Bowl last year. So it was in San Francisco. We were doing our show from the convention center in San Francisco, and it's that's the way it works. Media day generally, you go to this big convention center, and one of the things that was really shocking, there's a bunch of guests, right? They're all NFL guys. Hey, there's Dan Marino, there's Drew Brees, there's Brett Favre, and they're all pitching something, right? Joe Montana, Ronnie Lott, they're all pitching something. Marcus Allen. The only college coach that was there was Jim Harbaugh. He wasn't pitching anything. Jim Harbaugh goes to these wrestling shows. Nobody else does. Jim Harbaugh takes his glove and goes to the Cubs game. Nobody else does. Jim Harbaugh has milk with a steak, puts it on Twitter, gets talked about for 3 days. Nobody else does. And Jim Harbaugh was the only coach, only college person I saw in San Francisco for a week. No reason to be there. But Jim Harbaugh's like, I'm just going to get in a plane and go. I'm going to hang out, and I'm going to go on the Herd, and I'm going to go on, probably went on Rome's show, probably went on Patrick's show, probably went on Mike and Mike, probably went on all the shows. I mean, I don't watch, but probably did. Didn't mind, probably did the other ones. He worked. Gets people engaged. Wrestling, khakis, Cubs game, Super Bowl, work, on a plane, traveling, let people see you, connect, touch people. That's how you win elections. That's how you win elections.
All 3 hours of The Herd are always streaming on the Herd channel on the iHeartRadio app.
Last night, the committee in college football, believe it or not, I actually watched that briefly.
How did you do that?
Well, you watch it, the committee, and then I moved on to other channels.
Okay.
So the college football committee came out with Alabama, Clemson, Michigan, and Washington. On the right of the screen, I'm going to show you what Vegas came out with. Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, and Ohio State. Washington 6th. The committee loves them some Texas A&M. Let's bring on Joel Klatt, who's doing a great game Saturday.
Yes.
Washington hosting USC.
I cannot wait for that game.
Okay, like last night we were talking about polling and exit polling, right? Well, the Vegas poll says we don't trust the committee. We don't buy what they're selling. We think LSU and USC are good. We don't buy Texas A&M, Washington as much. Why shouldn't I believe Las Vegas?
Well, I think Washington is a very balanced team. They might not have played the schedule that maybe Vegas wants to see, but I completely disagree with Vegas on this point. And I understand those buildings didn't build themselves, but you have to understand one thing about Washington. They play a very specific style of football. It's the Boise State way. It's the Chris Peterson way. They're going to pound it in the run game. They're going to launch it over the top. They've got great personnel. They're balanced on defense on all three levels. They've got a great defensive line that can get after the quarterback. They've got athletic linebackers that tackle well in space, and probably the most undervalued secondary in all of college football, which is going to get a great chance against Juju Smith-Schuster this Saturday. Offensively, Jake Browning's the best pocket quarterback in college football. He attacks the defense down the field. John Ross has 14 touchdowns. Pettis has 11 touchdowns. They can run the ball with Gaskin. So all due respect to Las Vegas, Washington's one of the four best teams. There's not a doubt in my mind. They've been dominant. And those other teams, they have been good at times and great at times, but they've thrown out some real stinkers. And I think in life, you're only as good as your weakest link. The consistency for Washington, far better than Louisville or Ohio State.
Why, if they're so consistent, then why did they almost lose to awful Arizona and Utah, who's decent, had them on the ropes?
Utah is very good, in particular at home. Yeah, the Arizona game is a stinker. There's no question.
Okay.
But Clemson has had those too. Troy had them dead to rights. And North Carolina State, all they got to do is make the chip shot field goal, and they win the game. I mean, Arizona was never that close, albeit in overtime. But we've seen stinkers from everybody. That one, at least you could say it was early in the season with a young team, their first chance on the road. They got past it and have been dominant since. They didn't ever have to lose. You know, Louisville's lost a game. Ohio State went out there and lost to Penn State.
Yeah.
Something needs to be said for that.
Yeah. You have a big problem with records. I have no problem with losing. I think if Ohio State...
Then why do we play?
Well, there's nothing wrong with losing a game at Penn State that's going to go 10-2, and losing a game you led by 12 with 8 minutes to go. That's not a terrible loss.
So is going undefeated better than going through a season with one loss?
Yes. Scheduling better is impressive. When you schedule Idaho State...
Hold on. The schedule makeup has to matter.
Right.
The makeup of the schedule has to matter. Washington's going to face 10 Power 5 teams. Plus a conference championship game. So only one group of 5 and one FCS. How is that different from everybody else?
I'm just saying,
I don't understand.
So far, like, for instance, I think Wisconsin's real good. Wisconsin's lost a bunch of games, but they played a great schedule. I don't get paralyzed by undefeated. I think it's overrated. I think these athletic directors, you don't like the athletic directors on the committee. I don't like the athletic directors in the offseason that get on the phone and dial up Rutgers. That's what I don't like. You don't like them, and I don't like them. We don't like them for different reasons.
So Michigan and Ohio State can play Rutgers, and it's just fine.
Well, no, they're in conference.
Jim Delaney called them up and said, "Come on in."
No, they're stuck. Well, if you're stuck playing Maryland, I'm okay with it. But if you get on the phone and dial Maryland, then I have a problem. You know, yesterday Goulet on the show sided with you. He believes, and I just think this is crazy, but you think this too. Goulet sides with you. He thinks this committee thing is all kind of a TV show until the final poll.
Oh, no question about it. If this was a press release and not a television show, it would be much different. You wouldn't have the wild swings. Right now, the committee believes in their own power. There's wild statistical variance based on one rogue variable in a 12-variable equation, which I think is just totally asinine, to be quite honest with you. I think you're only as strong as your word. As a person, as a group, as an entity. And this committee constantly goes back on their word on which criteria is the main criteria week to week.
You think they sit in a room and it's like, hey, Larry. What, Jim? Larry, I'm just moving the Aggies up because it's better for Klatt to complain about. All right, Jim, I'll put them at 4. No way they're top 10.
Here's what I think, is that you get into that room and it's a no-win proposition. So you default to the only thing that you can defend yourself with, which is these ridiculous resume metrics. And so we failed to watch the games. Did anybody see that Cal has beaten 2 ranked teams at home? They were undefeated at home, and Washington went out there and blew the doors off of them.
Yeah, I'm not saying Washington's bad. I'm not. I'm just saying I think Ohio State's got the best coach in college football and better personnel. So I think Washington's good.
Florida and LSU get moved way down. Florida out of the poll. LSU down 11 spots. LSU plays Alabama tougher than Texas A&M.
Yep.
A&M loses to Mississippi State, who lost to like South Alabama.
I know.
And A&M moves down 4 spots.
Listen, I don't love the committee either.
The committee is a joke, Colin. It's a outright joke. No question.
Do you have your what do you make of this? So the Big Ten announced Friday.
Yeah.
They're gonna play a couple of Friday games.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, not many, and it's not Michigan.
I think it's 6.
Yeah, and they're cruddy. It's like Ohio and Purdue. I mean, I work at this network I won't watch. They're not very good games. Okay, so are you bothered that the Big Ten is saying for business, we're going to bump some high school football?
No, I think that it's the nature of the beast. High school football is played on all nights. I mean, you've got Thursday night high school football games. You got Saturday high school football games in some states. So I'm not as upset about that. I tell you, I am a little upset that all these pseudo dictators and head coaches and athletic directors think that they can be above the collective bargaining agreement between the networks and the conference. And they're like, oh, well, we're not going to do that. Well, what? Do you like money? Because guess what? We're paying your checks. So if we want to put you on Friday night, then you're going to play on Friday night. No one's bigger than the television networks and college football. I can't stand it. This coach saying, well, I'm not going to meet in person with the broadcast team. We're not going to play on Friday night. We're not going to play in prime time.
That guy makes
Do you like the checks or not?
Yeah, there's a reason Harbaugh's making $9 million a year.
Yeah, you're right. Because why? Because the networks pay the Big Ten obscene amount of money.
That's right. All right, what's your upset pick of the week?
I think I've got a good one here. I think Auburn is going to get a run for their money at Georgia. 7.5 point spread. Georgia's at home. They've only lost 2 home games by a total of 4 points. One of them was that crazy Tennessee Hail Mary, which should have never happened because of that ridiculous celebration
You have not
penalty.
been great on your almost upsets this year.
I've been like 50%. Better than the pollsters.
Who would have thought Kurt Schilling was the most accurate pollster in America? All right, that's your upset pick of the week. Joel Klatt, good seeing you, buddy.
I just love talking with you. 10 minutes are wrong every week from Colin Cowherd.
Everybody's so exhausted on today's show because everybody went, like Christine got to bed at 1 in the morning last night.
So did you, Joel, right?
I
You
did.
stayed up
I'm
How
a
do you have
political
so much
junkie.
energy? What did you do this morning?
Did you have a Red Bull? We're all just exhausted.
I didn't. I just love college football.
So it just gets you amped
That's
no matter
right.
what?
That's right.
I wonder how many people in America last night watched the coverage.
Like stayed up that late?
I bet you I don't know. The Super Bowl has, how many people watch Super Bowl? 100 million people? It's got to be higher than that, right? The election coverage last night has to surpass the Super Bowl.
It went so late.
I would assume, but yeah, I mean, can you? It's 1 in the morning West Coast.
Would you say, John?
Remember how many networks cover it though, so it's the viewers splinter among 8 different networks.
But if you add them all
up,
it should be much bigger than a Super Bowl. Sharif, you know that stuff.
I think it would be under a Super Bowl.
Really?
Why?
Yeah, because the Super Bowl is the middle of the day. I mean, that's 3 a.m. East Coast, 4 a.m. East Coast.
I was in an Uber last night, and the guy was like, "Hey, do you guys mind? I don't want to listen to music. Can I turn on NPR?" Like everybody.
Oh no!
Was listening and watching this.
I walked through the neighborhood last night. Every TV, I could see it through the curtains. Not that I was a peeping Tom.
Yeah,
I was just
creep.
Yeah.
This is the Herd Podcast.
Rex Ryan did something after losing to the Seahawks this Monday, and he was very upset at Richard Sherman. And so Rex Ryan, after the game, did something, and I don't like what he did, but I'm not a huge fan of Rex Ryan, so I'll try to be honest. I'll just let the tape play and go ahead.
Guy's a great player, but he did I mean, I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought he roughed our kicker. When it was a ridiculous play. No question. Then he's over on the sideline basically taunting us. And so I had some words. I mean, I think I said that, you're too good a player to act like an ass.
Yeah, like that's your job as Buffalo's coach to worry about Seattle's players. Pete Carroll was on Seattle radio yesterday responding to that.
You have Rex Ryan saying after the game that A, Sherman roughed the kicker, and B, used a 3-letter word to describe him. What do you make of Rex's response?
I just wish he'd coach his own team. That's it. Just coach your own guys.
Like, what's Rex Ryan doing? You know what happened Monday night? Pete Carroll won a game he should have lost, and Rex Ryan lost a game he should have won. And that Pete Carroll has done this all throughout his career, and he's done it in Seattle. Last year in the playoffs, Minnesota totally outplays Seattle, and Seattle got a break when Minnesota's field goal kicker from about 5 feet away missed the kick.
But from 27 yards left hash, snap good, spot down, Walsh's kick is up, and it is no good, he missed it! Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that!
Okay, but that was a game Seattle was outplayed on the road and won. The previous year, there was the Green Bay football game that Seattle was outplayed, a playoff game against Green Bay, and they won. Pete Carroll, Monday night, was totally outplayed. Buffalo had 40 more plays. Buffalo had the ball over double the time Seattle did. Seattle had it 19 minutes. Buffalo had it 40. And Seattle won. Because well-coached teams can win games even when they're absolutely outplayed. And Seattle was outplayed Monday and won, like they did at Minnesota in the playoffs last year, like they did the year before against Green Bay at home in the playoffs. Conversely, Rex Ryan loses games he should win. He loses a lot of close games. In fact, since he arrived in Buffalo, he's lost 7 of 10 games decided by a touchdown or less. He's lost 9 of 12 games decided by 8 or less. And by this year, Buffalo's 5 losses, 4 are by 1 possession. What does that tell you? that Rex Ryan's not good with efficiency, not good with details, not good in close games. He's worrying about stuff he shouldn't be worrying about. That's what Monday Night Football was about. It wasn't about the officials. It was about Buffalo once again losing a game with Rex Ryan as head coach. They outplayed the opposition. And about Seattle once again dealing with massive injuries, figuring out how to win a game they had no business winning.
Catch the Herd from noon to 3 Eastern on iHeartRadio and FS1.
You know, the other thing that I saw last night, there was a real disconnect between the American media and the public. I'll tell you, on sports, we've had a similar situation. Sometimes the media cares about something and the public does not care about it. The concussion issue, the public doesn't care. The public doesn't care about concussions because the public figures caveat emptor. If you play football, you know it's violent. Like NFL fans, every single beat guy I bring on, like Peter Schrager, he'll say, I'll write a story on that. No downloads. Nobody cares. The media's like, oh, the NFL concussions, this is terrible. It's unbelievable. It's killing players. It's not killing players. There would be a bunch of zombies walking around the country. I know 50 guys who have played in the NFL. None have had CTE. It's you have to be concerned about it, but that's one of those stories where there's a disconnect between the media and the fans. The media is enamored with it. That movie came out, Will Smith concussion. Nobody watched it. Nobody cared. I mean, they released it at the perfect time. Wasn't it released in like December, heart of the NFL season, when people go to movies, when they're Christmas shopping? Nobody watched it. We see this all the time. We saw it last night in America. There's a disconnect between the American political media and the American citizenry. There was a disconnect. One of the things I've always said on the show, Christine, I largely think outside of the home run derby in baseball, which I think is just stupid, and outside of the Pro Bowl in football, which I think is absolutely ridiculously unwatchable, I pretty much watch what America watches. I watch a lot of NFL, major college football, March Madness, LeBron James, Golden State Warriors, NBA playoffs, World Cup soccer games that are of note. And like if there's a UFC fight or a big boxing match, I'll watch. I pretty much watch what you watch. My job is to mostly, as I said many times on this show, you drive the bus. I'm the passenger, you're the driver. If you don't like a topic, I'm not going to talk about it. I don't talk hockey. You've told me you don't care about hockey. I don't talk tennis. I don't talk lacrosse. I don't talk regular season baseball because I know the numbers. I see the data. When you do polls, the data says you're not interested. So, but I in sports, you know, I was thinking about this morning driving to work. What a disconnect between the American public and they lied to the pollsters. Those exit polls, people just lied. They either avoided them or they lied to the media. And I'm thinking, well, that's because sometimes we don't listen to our audience, and our audience cares. Like one of the things I refuse to do is beat up on the NFL. I've watched a lot of my contemporaries. I've watched a lot of my peers in this business go anti-NFL. Why? The numbers are 4 times everything else. People like to bet it. My friends watch it. The games are competitive. I mean, I do think I wish we had a little better Monday night matchups. I do think those Thursday night games have been mostly awful. I mean, I'll admit that. But I've seen a lot of people go anti-NFL. That's just stupid. That's just dumb. Yeah, the ratings are off 15%. Part of it's politics. Part of it is Peyton Manning left and Brett Favre left and Big Ben's not playing and Tom Brady. I mean, some of it's that. The AFC right now has got a lot of bad teams. It's not very good. And AFC not very good. New England's good. But if I said to you right now, second best team in the AFC, I don't even know the answer to that. Honestly, what is the answer to that? I watched Buffalo in Seattle on Monday, and I was like, you know, there are moments. How many AFC teams on Monday would have gone to Seattle and outplayed the Seahawks and had 40 more plays? How many teams? How many teams in the AFC, not named the Patriots, would go to Seattle and double the time of possession? I was sitting there and thinking, I think Buffalo, you know, Buffalo's got Rex Ryan and Tyrod Taylor's not a world-class quarterback. Buffalo can play with anybody in the AFC. Buffalo can play with anybody in the AFC. I watched the Dolphins 2 weeks ago. The Dolphins' offensive line now is all patched up. Miami can play with everybody except New England. So I think this happens sometimes. The media disconnects with the public. Now and by the way, it's not easy. Last night, 100 million people voted. It was right down the middle. The popular vote was right down the middle. We have a very divided country. Like the blue's getting bluer and the red's getting redder. So we're a very divided country. I just want us to all work together. I'm rooting for America more than a political party. And but there are times there are a disconnect. You have to listen to your consumer base. We're all running a grocery store here. You keep it. Don't outthink the room here. Go milk, go bread, go mustard, go ketchup, go fruit, go bakery. Don't go crazy here. Like, so I'm not going to bash the NFL. The product is not as bad as everybody's saying. Too many of the sports blogs have gone anti-football and anti-NFL, and they just constantly lament concussions. The American people are not evil. If we had players dying every Sunday, if we had former players constantly dying, walking around like zombies, people would demand legislation, and people would watch the concussion movie, and people would stop going to games. You have to trust your fellow citizens. We're not a country full of evil people. But people look at football and think, I know, I played football. I don't have CTE. Troy Aikman played football. He had some concussions. He's very lucid on the air, great broadcaster. Our TV sets are full of broadcasters. This network, that network, the other network, NFL Network, ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC. All these networks have pro football players. Former players, some had concussions, some didn't. They're not walking zombies. So I think that story to me has been a disconnect. The media, which tends to lean left, you watched that last night, the media is all in on this concussion story. The public doesn't care. And frankly, the media is missing the mark on the concussion story. It's not as big as the media thinks. Yes, be careful. Yes, but anybody that plays football knows what they're in for. And by the way, you can quit your college team at any time. You can quit your high school team at any time. You can quit your NFL team, Chris Borland, at any time. You have the freedom to quit. You have the freedom to withdraw, to give somebody else your scholarship. That's a freedom you have. And I've never bashed a player one time for leaving early. Ever. Chris Borland, I said, I think he got some games left. I think he have some years left, but I didn't bash him. I like when players control their bodies and control their careers.